Hello everyone. My name is Phenomeno, your friendly neighborhood luchador, and today I am here with another behind the scenes video for one of my matches. Technically speaking, this still counts as behind the scenes stuff for Battle Prowess Wrestling because even though this match did not take place during a Battle Prowess Wrestling episode, this continued the story of one. So, this is a match between Matt Gray and Arthur Reeves for the Kvbw Championship. It was a pretty important wrestling, I think it's a pretty important match because at the time, Smarty wanted the Kvbw belt to sort of be similar to the NWA belt. It's where it can be, defended and won basically anywhere from anyone of any different brand. So originally, when BPW and now it's called RSW, but then it was called SWO. When we originally began our partnership, the first thing that we wanted to do to celebrate this, I suppose, was to have a member of the BPW roster challenge Matt Gray for the Kvbw title belt. And in the end, Arthur Reeves won that right. This was the first time in a very long time that SWO was collaborating with another E Federation, and I was a little bit honored that he chose to collaborate with me. So, let's get right into the video, and while it plays, I will explain the story going into it, some of my thoughts as I made this match, and hopefully it'll just be a fun watch. All right, let us get right to it. So, this is Arthur Reeves. To give a very brief explanation as to who Arthur Reeves is, think Ric Flair, but with the swagger of Blacker Baron from Anarchy Reigns, but also he's a gigantic dick. Essentially, Arthur Reeves, I guess he's the typical rich person wrestling character, you know, that they think that they're better than you just because they have a lot of money. The thing with Arthur Reeves is that even though he thinks he's better than everyone, he has cheated a lot in every single match in BPW up till this point, including the one that he was in to earn the right to face Matt Gray. He has cheated, and it has gone typically very badly for the person that he's facing. So, in order to introduce him to the SWO audience, the first thing he did when Matt Gray was finished with a very important matchup was go behind him, hit him in the dick, and then hit him with the Falcon's Arrow, which is, you know, what he calls the Maltese Falcon, which is his name for the Falcon's Arrow. And this entrance was one that I workshopped and is completely new. Typically he just walks around, you know, looking all fancy and whatnot, but I thought, you know what would make him look like a real dick? He comes in with the limo and he rains money everywhere. Basically the whole JBL thing. Yeah. And this is the champion Matt Gray. Now, because I thought that this match was very important, I wanted to make it feel as big as possible. And the champion is sort of the biggest part of the championship match, most of the time. So, in order to build up the hype and make it seem like Matt Gray is a big star, which he is, don't get me wrong, I used my old custom Titantron skills to make him the hype package before his entrance. Because I remember seeing that during WrestleMania, for example, not just WrestleMania, but different pay-per-views, some wrestlers would have like the highlights of them beating ass before they go into the entrance in order to build them up. So, Matt Gray has had, up till this point, has had a very interesting run. he was actually on a very severe losing streak. The biggest losing streak has ever been on, in fact. He lost 8 matches. He even lost to jobbers, too. And it wasn't up until he managed to find something that clicked in him that he won the Kvbw belt. So, in my mind, this dude was in a career valley. He was the worst he had ever been, and when he was finally able to get himself out of that, he won a championship. So, imagine how he would react when one of the people he needs to defend against is someone that cheats all the time, has no respect for the business, and is only in it for himself. I personally imagine that Matt Gray would be utterly furious and completely contemptuous of someone like that. So I kept that in mind during this, during the creation of this match. So, what was I going to say? I should have written a script. But essentially, like I said, I wanted this to be a very big match feel. Oh yeah, I probably should have mentioned from the get-go. This is a no holds barred match, no DQ or anything. I don't know what the difference between no holds barred and no DQ'd is, but essentially, because Matt was so in contempt of Arthur, he's letting Arthur cheat his way to win, because he wants to prove he can beat him nonetheless. Alright, so the match begins, and this is just a little something from me. Whenever I start a match, I always want to raise a question and to set the relationship between the two wrestlers. The question I wanted to do here was, how is Arthur Reeves going to be able to go toe-to-toe with someone like Matt Gray? Because, again, Arthur is good, but he has cheated in all of his matches to win, and Matt Gray is, well, a monster. And the second thing is to establish the relationship between the wrestlers. So, how did I establish the relationship between Arthur Reeves and Matt Gray in this match? Arthur Reeves talks shit, and he gets hit. So, this right here, this is what's the word? It's supposed to give an answer to the question about whether Arthur Reeves can hang with Matt Gray. And the answer, at first, is obviously no. The very first thing that happened to him was he got absolutely trounced. Look at him. He's on his hands and knees while Matt Gray is chilling in the corner. It's very obvious who the dominant wrestler is in this story. But it then raises another question. Matt Gray is in such contempt about Arthur Reeves. Why is he not going for the pin? Why is he giving him time to get up? That's something I was hoping was in the minds of people while they were watching this. And so they go into a collar and elbow tie-up, aka chain wrestling. And oddly enough, even though Arthur just got his ass handed to him a couple of seconds ago, he's in control. Not only is he in control, he is making Matt Gray stagger. Now, I think I should have... Oh, here we go. Matt Gray counters. He, of course, is still a dominant wrestler. He quickly goes into the crossface. And how does Arthur Reeves respond to that? Roll up. 1, 2. So just like that, that adds some... It adds a small change to their dynamic. So Arthur Reeves seems like he is the underdog here. However, in the very first moments of the match, like if we can see here, 6 minutes, he almost beat Matt Gray. Up to this point, Matt Gray had not, well, aside from his losing streak, ever since he won the Kvbw championship, he had only been pinned once. And every other time, he was completely dominant. So here comes this dude that he looks down on completely, and he almost got beaten by him in the first few minutes. And Arthur Reeves makes him know that he's the better person, and he just gets clocked again. So even though Arthur Reeves ain't nothing to mess with, yeah, his cockiness is still a weakness. And again, while Matt Gray almost got pinned in the first few minutes of the match, Arthur is still is raring to go. Now, aside from the obvious comedy of someone talking shit and then immediately getting punched in the face, that was to continuously highlight the fact that Arthur Reeves, it may be cocky, he may be a gigantic asshole, but he is a very skilled wrestler, and if Matt Gray does not take him seriously, he is going to lose. So that is what I wanted with this, with the first few moves of the match, to make sure that the audience knew that this match is not going to be a squash, and that if Matt continues to be contemptuous, he is going to lose. So they get back into some chain wrestling. Matt shoves Arthur into the corner. And immediately, cheap shot. That's Arthur's MO, being a lying, backstabbing scumbag that will use anything to win. That, and he is a brawler as well. He's not just good with technical stuff. Now, here's something that I think I made a mistake with. I think that, personally speaking, I think Arthur should have been a bit more control here, at least for a couple more minutes or a couple more moves. Because again, I wanted it to seem that these two were equal. So having Matt escape out of this move very quickly into just let me show you. And then he goes for the pin. One. Yes. So having Matt escape out of it quickly and get a pin off of an arm drag, I think was a mistake on my part. I think that I should have had him do something like either make a sequence or something where Arthur goes for one of his signature moves, the Falcon's Arrow, the Superplex, early, and Matt Gray gets out of that before hitting a big move again, and then Arthur continues to kick out one. Like, at the time, it just seemed fine, but personally, to me, looking back on it, I think I could have improved it in that aspect. Because it continues the story that, you know, they're equal, and then it raises the idea, holy crap, maybe Arthur is better than Matt Gray, with him, you know, going into his big move already, but then Matt Gray is able to slip out of it, thus getting rid of that question. So, while Arthur Reeves is a brawler and a technician, Matt Gray is also a technician and he's a striker. The difference between brawling and striking is that, you know, brawling is more street fighting, just punches and brutal kicks, while striking is more refined. So here is where we show I show Arthur Reeves' aspect with technical wrestling, aside from the chain wrestling to begin with. And okay, let me go back here a moment. So he countered the triangle into a, I think this is the cloverleaf move. And originally I thought that the counter synced up fine because the way how Matt Gray has Arthur's hand trapped between his legs and his neck on his shin, I thought that this move would work if it was countered. However, the issue here is, like, if you take a look at Matt Gray's left leg, which is over Arthur Reeves' shoulder, Arthur counters by punching him in the kidney, and then he turns him around. How does Matt Gray's leg get underneath Reeves' shoulder here? See? Now, when making a sequence with a wrestling move, of course not everything's gonna fit in smoothly. Sometimes you can just rely on the audience's imagination to make sure that the move works, but that still requires some work on your part. So the unfortunate thing here is that I feel like this move doesn't necessarily sync correctly with the counter here. Nonetheless, I don't think people were pausing it and looking at and dissecting it like I am right now, so maybe it's fine, but this is just a personal thing on my part. Alright, so like I was saying before, Arthur Reeves is a brawler, but he's also a technician. And the fact that he's able to counter Matt Gray's typical go-to, you know, of technical wrestling, it's meant to still reinforce the fact that they're equals nonetheless. So Arthur has him in a very, very tight clover leaf. And how does Matt Gray get out of this? He just powers him out, and Arthur has to go to the ropes. So, again, forgive me if I'm pausing all the time, but this is just me talking. So anyway, I guess I should have said at the beginning, if me pausing all of this and talking about bothers you, I will link the full match with and without commentary in the description so you can watch it yourself. And if you still want to hear me talk about it, then come back here. I'll be waiting for you. So anyway, Arthur is now... Okay, that right there is an annoying glitch because Matt's hand is supposed to be on the other side of Reeves' face. It just looks like he elbowed his palm, and that's stupid. But when I make matches, I tend to separate them into different acts. Acts 1 through 3. Sometimes I introduce an act 4 if the match is, you know, a big one or a long one or something like that. So up till now, in Act 1 is supposed to be introducing the wrestlers, introducing their relationship with one another, asking an initial question, and making the baseline for the story of this match. So typically in a match, Act 2 is when the questions are answered, and as a result, wrestlers begin to turn things up a notch. An example of this can be seen in other matches as well. Let's take, what match could work? Okay, let's take, for example, Shibata versus Okada at, God, when was this? Hold on. When was this match? Shibata versus Okada. Sakura Genesis on 2017. Unfortunately, Shibata's last match up to this point. I hope he gets better and gets back to wrestling. That dude's an amazing wrestler. But I digress. The typical acts for a Shibata match is that and this is just, these are the only ones that I have seen. And I've seen like 5 of his matches. So if I'm wrong, I am just being general with what I know. This is just my experience. When typical act structure with Shibata is that he starts off very technical, and the person he's facing either is able to match his technical wrestling or cannot. So either or, it works up until Act 2. With Shibata versus Okada, Shibata was clearly in control of technical wrestling. He raised the question. The question was raised, how is Okada going to match Shibata in technical wrestling? And the answer is he cannot. So Act 2 is when Okada gets frustrating with the technical wrestling and starts going into more basic striking. And you do not strike with Shibata. He just eats your punches and hits you 10 times as hard. That's Act 2. Where it divulges from, you know, smart technical wrestling to just furious striking between the two. And the question there is, how on earth is Okada going to be able to even hurt Shibata, let alone outmatch him in striking? So in this match, Act 2 here is, okay, Reeves and Gray are very clearly equal. So how is Gray going to answer Reeves here? Reeves shows that he is able to fight dirty, and he is willing to, well, not only is he able to fight dirty, but he can match Matt Gray when it comes to technical wrestling, and he's able to match him when it comes to brawling. Well, match his striking with his brawling, I should say. So how does Matt Gray respond? His response is to go up another gear entirely with an apron exploder suplex. And he's not done there. More striking than even before. A lot more striking than even before. So here's Matt Gray's answer to Arthur Reeves. He's going to continue using what took him to the dance thus far. Technical wrestling, high power moves, and striking. And before, he was just like, he did not take him seriously before, which is why Arthur was able to beat the heck out of him so much, which is why I still think I should have had Arthur be more dominant at that point. But yeah, Matt Gray is just returning to his typical style, but doing so with much more intensity because he's taking Reeves a bit more seriously. However, Reeves is still Reeves. He is able to match this and responds with his own striking. And then spikes him. So, the thing I like a lot about this move, and I think I like a lot about many moves in 2K, is that different moves have different personalities to them. There's a power slam in the game, for example, where instead of just before going for the pin, the person that does the power slam dusts their hands to say, yeah, it's a done deal already. The unfortunate thing is that many of the moves in this game, the personality is just, haha, I am silly. And while that works for some wrestlers, like well, I guess like me, for example, given that I am a very cocky person in the ring, it makes sense that many of my moves would involve me, like, being flamboyant or dancing or whatever. I mean, my signature move is to fucking dance on, fucking dab on someone, so it makes sense that I would be cocky. But a simple move like this, the Spike DDT, he's not going for the pin. He's simply observing his opponent because he feels incredibly confident. It's almost as if the strikes that Matt Gray smacked on him didn't do anything. So then there's confidence, and then there's overconfidence. So I guess this is a bit on me, because just a moment ago I was saying how annoying that some of the moves, some of the personality of the moves is haha, I'm silly. And here Matt Reeves is, you know, flexing, and he looks very silly, not gonna lie. But it's just his way of showing how friggin' confident he is. The issue is he's overconfident. This is one of the longest taunts in the game, and he does the full thing before going for the pin, and Matt Gray kicks out immediately. Now, you saw how long that taunt was, and how, you know, prone Gray was before he kicks out immediately. This was to show that if Reeves went for the pin instead of being such a cocky son of a bitch, he might have actually beat him there. So I wanted it. This was to make sure that Arthur's weakness was still in mind, so that you could keep it for later. The fact that Arthur is an incredibly cocky person, and sometimes the cockiness is to his detriment. Even though he's equal to Matt Gray, it's meant to be, I guess, it's meant to be a sign that Gray has a chance. Because, like we just saw, Gray hits him with practically everything, and Arthur took it like it was nothing. So maybe it's like, oh god, Gray might lose his championship to this guy. But when he gets hit with something big, he instead goes for a very cocky taunt. And this raises the idea that, if Matt Gray is smart, he could use this to his advantage, or Reeves is going to be so cocky that it's going to cost him. Basically, foreshadowing. Alright, so the annoying thing about 2K games is that the AI excuse me. Even when you're controlling the characters, they still have a level of AI to them. The game will randomly decide when the character will roll to the apron, crawl to the ropes to try and get up, etc., etc. Trying to trigger this on purpose is basically impossible. It's why in most of my matches, when I plan them out, I do not even think about getting someone to roll out onto the apron. The only way that you can do this, like on purpose, is if you have more than 3 people in the match. Because whenever, more than 2 people in the match. Whenever someone takes too much damage when there are 3 wrestlers in a ring in this game, they will roll to the outside where they will recover. This is to emulate how in triple threat matches in actual wrestling, when someone gets decked in the face, they'll leave the ring, allowing 2 people to go at it before they hop back in. But I did not, at the time of making this, when did I make this actually? Yeah, this was last year. At the time when I made this, I didn't actually think about using that to my advantage. So him rolling to the outside was not planned, but I did use it to my advantage nonetheless. So Reeves takes a run up and gets rocked for it. So, quick thing, I suppose. Originally speaking, this was going, this small Irish whip here, right here. Originally, Matt was going to send Reeves to the outside, and that part doesn't happen up until, yeah, 14 minutes, so like 5 minutes from now. When I originally made this match, I realized that when we reached this point, that the match was still too small. It didn't tell the story that I wanted it to, at least not effectively. That, and I don't really think that would have been very entertaining for it to be that small. So I decided to extend it a little bit. And it was mainly to continue, when I was extending it, it was to continue, well, not just to continue the story, but also to, you know, make an entertaining wrestling match for people. So, if I remember correctly, at this point, I wanted it to be Matt Gray is trying to turn it up another gear once again. So he sends him into the corner and starts beating the crap out of him. I do like using corner rebound because there's a sort of ferocity into sending someone into the corner and not giving them the time to recover. So, Brainbuster floats over, back to some ground and pound. Still relying on striking, but being even more brutal than before. And yeah, Arthur is getting his ass handed to him. So, this is typically how most of Matt Gray's matches go. At least in RSW, he just beats the ever-living crap out of people. And at this point, Arthur is pissed too. So, he's gonna be even more ferocious, sorry. But nonetheless, Arthur is still able to match him, and he is disrespecting him by slapping him across the face. So he goes for his brainbuster again, and instead, Arthur absolutely slams him. Now, again, that was not some, how do I put this? I think that was a mistake on my part. Not the sequence, but the camera angles. Like, let's take a look again. So, camera was to cut here so that we can very clearly see Matt Gray first sell getting punched in the stomach, and then show him setting up this kick. Why did I change the camera angle here, and I changed it again? Why did I do that? Hold on. So, this change here was an unnecessary camera angle change, I feel. That was an issue with here. So, this camera angle works because it shows that he's setting up for a suplex. He puts him up high, and the issue with this here, because of how slow the game is when, sorry, how I put this. At times, if you do not zoom out far enough, like here, for example, if Matt Gray went with a suplex, the moment of impact would be lost because it would land off screen. And that would not work because, you know, a wrestling move like a slam is all about the moment of impact. So what would be the point if you don't show it? Which is why a lot of people hate Kevin Dunn, because a lot of his camera cuts remove the impact of wrestling moves. But either way, I was digressing. See, Arthur is able to slip behind him here, and then grabs him, turns him, and slam. Now, I think that was, again, that was an unnecessary camera cut here. I could have very easily just zoomed out from here, or kept this camera angle here. I think that what I wanted to do was, hold on, yep, cover clutch slam, turns here. So what I wanted to do was sort of emulate the hard cam. For those of you who do not know, in wrestling, a hard cam is a part of the, how do I put this? In every single wrestling show, well, let me rephrase. In Western wrestling shows, as far as I'm aware, there's always one main camera, which is meant to capture the entire ring. And this is called hard cam. It's the camera that's always focused like on the entire ring. And whenever someone does a big move, I guess especially in WWE, they almost always face the hard cam, so that there's a big shot of them hitting the move and the reaction from people behind them, etc., etc. I wanted to emulate that because I do not typically emulate the hard cam thing. Most of my matches just use cameras that are like camera positions that just showcase the move the best, or help with momentum and whatever. And I wanted it here because I wanted it to first show Matt Gray's face and then very properly show the slam. I think I honestly should have just kept it hard cam when Reeves originally slipped behind and then turned Matt Gray to face it. But anyway. So, Arthur is in control once again. I really like... This is a weakness for me. I do enjoy having the camera amongst the crowd, especially when the AI, you know, works and the crowd reacts the way I want it to. Especially because for some strange reason recently I've noticed that the crowd cheers people that you set them to boo and boos people you set them to cheer. I guess that's an example of the game trying to, you know, trying to emulate a crowd that really does not care for your storytelling. But yeah, the crowd are really against Reeves here. Shows him to be a bad guy, and he is showing his overconfidence again. And he immediately runs into a brick wall that's Matt. I mean, just look at his face. He's like, are you fucking serious, my guy? But that, if you had a keen eye, you would have seen that essentially Arthur Reeves just runs into Matt Gray, and the moment of impact is lost. Unfortunately, I think this was the first match that I made in 2K19. No, the second match that I made in 2K19. So I was still getting used to the extended limits of the clips, and some of the impact of the moves were lost. I do my best to work around those. That can be fixed with very clever editing, and if you change things up, if you change the camera angle fast enough and have the sound still play, it will, the moment of impact the audience will think that they saw the moment of impact, because essentially you're just, it's like if you hear a car crash but you only see the aftermath, your brain will end up making up the picture of that car crash in your mind. Essentially, whenever a moment of impact is lost, that's how I solve that issue. But anyway, Arthur Reeves was in control, but once again, his overconfidence gets the better of him. And Matt Gray responds with a super Matt punch. That's just what I call it. So, Matt sends Reeves into the corner, and he starts returning to his style, which is just utter striking. And he is going fucking ham, as per usual. Okay, so just a small thing here for me. I think that I am having Reeves be a bit too invincible in this case, because he took God knows how many punches to the face, right? And then he just counters it, and 1, 2, 3, 4. He's able to knock down Matt with 4 punches. So in this case, it makes it seem like Arthur is either very, very fucking tough, and he is, but not to that degree, or Matt Gray is like now the underdog here. That's not what I wanted to show at all. I wanted them to be equals. So what I should have done here, let's go back a little bit more. So what I should have done is have him counter this punch here. So it still shows that Gray was dishing out a lot of punches very quickly, but not so many that it's a bit ridiculous. If someone constantly takes damage and then shrugs it off like it's nothing, then it makes it a bit less believable that the same move will be able to hurt them later on. At least not unless there's a big change to cause the move to start hurting. And I was not planning on adding said change. Typically, for example, this is just me digressing, and if you, well, whatever. I'm digressing this entire time. Typically, if in that sort of scenario, it would be, for example, someone trying to get an armbar or a technical move to work, and it would not work at all. So what they do is just soften up the limbs and then do it again. Obviously, if you try and grab my arm, I'm going to stop you. But if you hurt my arm to a grand degree and then grab my arm, there's very little that I can do to stop you in that situation. But you can't really do that with a punch, How do you soften someone's face for a punch? By punching them in the face? You see my issue? So, let's go back. So he decks him in the face, starts choking him because he is an evil heel person. He goes for the pin. Now, one thing I do enjoy with the game, and God, there's so much I can say against 2K19, but when it gets things right, it gets things right. The kick-out animations. There's a different kick-out animation for every level of health that someone is on, and I think it also depends on how much momentum you have. For example, if he kicked out like this at 2, if he had high health, he would sit right up. Kick outs at 2 with low health, it's just a very weak, shoulder up thing. And this works here because it's to show, wow, Reeves is taking it to Gray. However, Reeves is not happy with that. He argues with the ref, and then he leaves the ring. So Gray, ever valiant, gets up and smack. So gets rocked with a chair, and it's meant to be like, he's the first person to bring a weapon into this, no DQ match, and honestly, I think there might be an issue here, but I guess that depends on how you think about it, because typically, when a heel brings something like this into a match, it's when they're not doing very well. It's meant to, the typical story is that a heel is so desperate to win that they start cheating. But in this instance, Arthur is still in control. It can be argued that Arthur is so sick of Matt kicking out that he starts using weapons, but I don't know. Anyway. I also hate, just small thing here. I also hate in this game how if you smack someone with a chair from behind, the person drops the chair. Like, what do you have, Butterfingers? Come on. So, anyway, He sticks the chair in the corner because has a creative mind and has more things he wants to do. Matt Gray is slowly getting to his feet, but Reeves instead decks him in the face, and then he tries to send him into the chair, and he gets sent headfirst into it instead. So one thing I wanted to do with this match was have it be that while Reeves is going to be, you know, using all sorts of cheap tactics to win, in order to prove a point that he doesn't need it, Gray is not going to pull in those things himself. This was a way to get Gray to use weapons without him having to rely on them. As far as he is aware, he didn't know the chair was there, but, you know, it worked to his advantage nonetheless. Also, it was to fit a running joke in SWO back then. I think it's still a running joke now. Thanks for the inputs, loud-ass motorcycle.
2 hours later.
Okay, so whenever, basically the joke is that whenever someone brings a weapon into a match, that weapon will always be used against them. This basically goes with, especially with chairs and kendo sticks and whatnot. So in SWO and RSW, we have taken to calling it Chekhov's chair, or basically like Chekhov's chair or Chekhov's kendo stick or anything like that, in order to reference, you know, Chekhov's revolver. If you show something on the screen, it's going to need to be used later, etc., etc. But yeah, it was also to do that. But anyway, so he then rolls him up. Okay, I think this is where I discovered the whole, because many moves in the game start with you holding your wrestler with their like bent over while you have them in a butterfly, essentially like a butterfly DDT. And I will admit I have used this move. Hold on, here we go. So this move is basically Dirty Deeds 3, which is just a schoolboy into a butterfly DDT. And because so many moves start with butterfly, with your position and your opponent in this sort of position, I have used this move so many times to start sequences or continue sequences I've lost count. And to be honest, it is something that I might have overdone in a couple of cases, but I just like the move. It fits in so well with so many different things. It's like how do you not have a sandwich without bread, you know? Anyway, so this was actually a accidental thing, but a good thing nonetheless. I completely forgot that the move that Matt Gray hit just here was his old finishing move, the Way of the Dragon. And I wanted it to be that I just thought that the move looked cool but was also intense. So I thought it would be that Matt Gray is turning up the intensity even more to try and match with Reeves. The fact that it's an old finisher of his actually tells a better story than what I was planning, because it says, holy fuck, why is this guy not going down? I need to rely on my old tricks to try and get an advantage. And up to this point, Matt Gray has not used this move in years. So the fact that he needs to use it to go toe-to-toe with Arthur Reeves is telling of how serious this match is at the moment. Now, if I knew that this move was his finisher, I would have had Reeves be in it a bit more. I do like the way that he gets out of it, though. It's the whole brawling thing. So, then, okay. See, I probably would have had it that he does this move first, and then the Way of the Dragon. But this Kimura lock here, it was actually added in because it was a request from Smarty, the dude who owns Smart Way Out and Ready Set Wrestle. He recorded a, well, to begin with, the issue with these sorts of things is that for some reason, Smarty cannot upload belts. So he has to record every championship win and every championship entrance. And when he was recording that, he actually had Gray do this Kimura lock move after another hold, and he asked me if I could get this sequence into the match, and I decided it would work to my advantage, because now Matt Gray is, up till now, he tried technical wrestling before and it did not work. He tried high impact moves and it did not work. He tried striking and it did not work. He turned up the gear in striking and high impact moves. So it stands to reason that he then tried to turn up the gear again with technical wrestling. So he slips him over and he starts working on the same... Hold on. Okay. Sorry, I'm just double checking something. So right here is working on the left arm, and then... Okay. Yeah, so he's working on the same arm with a different submission this time. Which is... I guess it makes sense. If you're working on an arm that you want to tap out, it makes sense that you'd work on the same arm. And I don't think that was on purpose. I think I was just going to have a go that he's working on the arms because he's that desperate and he doesn't want Reeves to punch him in the face again. But yeah, this works to my advantage. So he is working on the arm here, trying in order to get, in order to tap him out now, because he does not think that he's going to be able to pin him. And how does Reeves respond? With more of his brawling. Now, what I should have probably done was transition this into one of the ground and pound moves. So that way it shows that Reeves is being as brutal as ever and Gray is still on the back foot. But I did not think to do that, unfortunately. So now it's Reeves gonna go back to technical wrestling. And this was also to, you know, not just to extend the match, but to also show Reeves being a very violent, well, not violent, but a piece of crap heel, essentially. Give him some bad guy heat, so to speak. And give Matt Gray some more sympathy, too. So, after putting Gray down, Reeves goes for another weapon. Unfortunately, Matt Gray recovered a lot faster than he had expected. So, at this point, it's meant to be that Gray is getting very, very sick of Reeves. And so, first, he dragon suplexes him on the ramp. And at this point, he really just wants to put Reeves away. So to show off his anger, he takes him to the steel parts of the ramp and... Okay, so him flipping off Reeves was not planned at all. I just thought he would like do angry taunts to show that he's in control, but this still works because it shows he is very sick of Reeves' shenanigans. By the way, Reeves just got shoulder and neck first slammed into steel, so it makes sense that this would be close to the end of the match. And he's not done there. A third suplex onto his neck and shoulders. He goes for the pin. Now, this is where I learned like the technique of how to get a very, very close pin. The way how I did it was like when he goes for the pin here. Hold on. So when he goes for the pin, originally that was in like a gameplay match, that would be a 3 count. But editing, of course not. And what I do is I wait until the very, very, very last moment to cut the clip to Reeves kicking out. Unfortunately, some of the weaknesses in this is that the ref will not always stay in the same position. If you pay attention to the ref throughout this match, he is teleporting every which way because the ref is an uncontrollable force in this game. He just does whatever the fuck he wants to. But either way, Reeves kicks out at 2.999, and Gray cannot believe it. I mean, to be fair, would you either? Reeves has been through so much, and yet he's still standing in there. It's meant to be a big, what the fuck does Matt need to do to put Reeves away sort of thing. So, he decides to go back to it and sends him outside again. So, this is where, originally this is where, all the way back here. All the way back here, this is where originally Matt was going to toss Reeves to the outside, and I am very glad that I decided to write things and rewrite things so that it reached this point, because this is a lot better. So, if you know this game, you kind of know what this move is, well, this animation is, and if not, then I guess most people do not. Well, sorry. Most of the people who watch these sort of things are familiar with the game. But this is essentially an apron powerbomb, and an apron powerbomb is supposed to be a big, you know, move that's supposed to potentially end careers or beat the ever-loving crap out of someone. And this is to show that Matt Gray is really, really, really sick of Reeves because he's willing to go that far to take him down. Now, Reeves knows this and just powers him out of it. So, I know this part is very basic, but this is actually one of my favorite parts of the match. And as you can see, oh, hold on. I think I accidentally skipped a part of it. So, it's just these two doing fisticuffs brawling on the outside, and it's very simple, but it shows that these two are equal at first. But then, Matt Gray gets the advantage. He knocks Reeves down. He tries again, but Reeves counters. So you think, oh, Reeves has the advantage now. Nope. Dragon suplex onto the floor. And he's not done there. He wants to put Reeves away at all costs, so he's gonna go back to that apron powerbomb and add some extra mustard to it too. And he's not done there. Now, he's going to gently place him on the announce table. Now, I really should have re-recorded this part because there's a lot worse that he could have done to Reeves involving this announce table without it needing to break. But here it just looks like he gently tucked him into bed and placed him on the announce table before he fell off. And that seems very weak and sort of anticlimactic, you know? But anyway. He's going to continue it. But Reeves counters and low blow. So up till this point, this has sort of been one of Reeves' signatures because I think in most of the matches he's been in, well, no. Yes, sort of. It's a callback to when Reeves first met Gray because the first thing that Reeves did to Gray was punch him in the dick. A low blow. It's also to, you know, show that he's a cheating scumbag, and yeah. Not necessarily one of his signature moves, but I did make it one after this match. But anywho, he's very confident, and yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the AI is strange. Gray very quickly gets up despite being punched in the dick, and I really should have re-recorded it so that I stayed down more, so that looks at least like Reeves has the advantage before Gray gets up or attacks him while Reeves is distracted. But instead, Reeves just grabs the stairs, and even though Gray is right in fucking front of him, he doesn't even notice. And so I quickly turned him around to make it look like, oh, he doesn't know about anything. And so he gets decked in the back of the head for his troubles. And pop-up punch. That was one of Matt's signatures. I don't know if it still is, but I should have done more to highlight that move. Ah well. So after doing that, he goes for the pin. Unfortunately, not able to get the pin. I think that's how I highlighted it, by making a 2 count. But Reeves gets up and gets absolutely smashed through the suplex. Now, I wanted Reeves to stay down a bit longer, and then Gray just gets up, well, picks him up, but I guess I decided to just take advantage, well, not take advantage, but use what the game was giving me to work with. So Gray is now charging up for something. So I wanted to make it look like he was going for his finisher, which is a half Nelson suplex, but I completely forgot at this point that Matt Gray slips into the half Nelson suplex from the front, not the back. People that know about him, if you know his moveset, this mistake unfortunately ruined some of the drama I was going for at this point. I guess if you did not, this just makes it look like he's going to do something like possibly another suplex like he did to Reeves just now. But anyway, Reeves fights back, sends him off the ropes, picture perfect dropkick. Honestly, that is actually my favorite move that I gave him in his moveset, because it's for one, Reeves is an old school style wrestler, and two, a dropkick's always pretty. I remember back in the day, a dropkick used to be a finisher. Kind of weird to think about now. But, like, having him do such a picture-perfect moonsault is meant to be, like, show he's old school and he's still very athletic and very competent, I guess I should say. See, the dropkick was actually able to stun Gray a lot, and he's not done there. Picks him up, and Falcon's Arrow, aka Maltese Falcon, and he goes for the pin. 1, 2. Now the unfortunate thing, I think this is more a problem with me. Even though I like his signature, the Maltese Falcon, it has never gotten him a win. It's beginning to turn into his, Blue Thunderbomb with Sami Zayn, because Sami Zayn has been doing the Blue Thunderbomb for God knows how long, and it has never gotten him a pin. At least not in WWE. Actually, no, it got him 1 pin. But he's been in the company for almost a decade now. And with how many matches he's had, only 1 pin? That move kind of seems pathetic. But anyway, that's a small tangent, but that's what I'm afraid of is going to happen with the Maltese Falcon. Anywho. Okay, small tangent here. I guess that's why when a wrestler has a signature move, it should be one that it would make sense that someone would kick out of it, but doesn't look like it's damaging, but not too damaging, but looks like someone would be able to kick out of it. Like the the five knuckle shuffle, for example. Who's going to be pinned by being punched in the face? Nobody. But it's not just to pin you. It's supposed to stun you so that when John Cena brings you up, you don't counter when he goes for the attitude adjustment. Ugh. But I digress. So he sends him into the corner because he goes for his finisher, which is the superplex. Very old school, but very damaging looking move, if you ask me. So he goes for it, but instead, Gray shoves him off, still able to keep fighting, and knee strike. So, I think this is where where I began Act 3. Up to this point, now it's Reeves that's in the back foot because he hits Gray with, he first hit Gray with one of his big moves. It did not get him the win. So he tries to hit his finisher, and instead he gets kneed in the face. And now finally, it's when he's starting to feel the moves that's been hit with him, as we can see with his selling. So, going for the pin, the finish, he goes for the fade to Gray, the Kvbw driver. And here's a small thing with me, I guess. I don't know how to make a close pin, but with a submission. Because I feel like, I guess this is just me. Let me show you what happens. So, Reeves is stuck in this submission for a while, close up on him suffering, showing that he can't escape at all, and that the move is locked in real tight. And then you see this dude running in and you're like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? But it's obvious that he's gonna break the submission. But the issue here is that I don't know how to make a close submission. I don't know how to have it be like, oh god, he's really about to tap out. I guess that's something I'll need to workshop or think about in the future. But anywho, this big guy, Arthur Reeves' insurance policy, aka Jersey Falls, he breaks up the submission. And so this was to introduce exactly what this person was capable of in the ring. Because in BTW, up to this point, while he has appeared, he has never been in the ring. And this is to be a, what's the word? A hint as to what exactly this guy is capable of. So we've seen up till now that Matt Gray is a very competent wrestler, and Arthur Reeves is also competent, but nonetheless he's able to surpass Reeves, despite everything that Reeves has been through. So Gray, in a power scale, I suppose, it's like putting Gray up above Reeves. So with that in mind, when you see this big fucking guy just appear out of nowhere, deck Reeves so hard he's stuck on the ropes, and then he does this, it makes you think, who the hell is this guy? And then it goes even worse. So, I don't know if you noticed, but each time that Gray is being powerbombed, I make the screen shake a bit. This is something that I do only with finishers and signatures, or very, very rarely with heavy strikes. It's to show, it's to, what's the word? It's to give the impression that this move is a very hard impact move. Essentially, it's like, excuse me. Essentially, it's like when someone, how do I put this? Recently, actually, how do I put this? Yeah, it's basically to help show the high impact of a move. The fact that it's so intense that not only is it shaking the ring, it's shaking the freaking camera. And I applied this effect to these power bombs that Jersey Falls is doing to Matt Gray, to add to the holy shit factor of what this dude is doing. So he power bombs him like God knows how many times. And then yeets him out of the ring. So I always said before that I was going to make a spot where someone uses a running powerbomb toss and he tosses someone out of the ring. I do not think that I did it correctly here. I definitely did it correctly in matches that I made more recently, but either way, Matt Gray just got powerbombed so many times and then flung to the outside in a powerbomb. So it's meant to be like, holy fuck, who is this guy? How is Matt Gray going to stand up to him now? Alright, just a small thing. I really, really, really love the punch cell where it's so powerful it just spins someone around. It is strange because the animation for spinning your opponents around is just punching them in the shoulder or punching them in the back. But the stunned punch to face equals spinning body around, I really like. And then sends him into the barricade, rams him into the barricade, does not let him fall over, picks him the fuck up in another powerbomb, and ring post, and damn. So, well, never mind. Never mind what I was gonna say. And then to up it even more, he just picks him up and smash. So, here's why. I think this is what I was going to say. I think this move is significantly more effective with the other barricades than these ones, because like it's just metal barricades that are held together by like a I guess a connector or whatever. It's a lot more impressive if he breaks through I guess like the modern day barricades that WWE use, because those things look like they're very well made and very hard connected, so when they are smashed through, that adds a lot more force to it. By the way, I still think that it works because Matt Gray just got spine busted into metal. And nobody has tossed Matt Gray around like this. Even when Matt Gray loses, it's very barely. So the fact that this huge mysterious dude just appeared and dominates him is meant to be another big holy shit thing. And of course, he just grabs him and sends him into the ring so Reeves can get the pin. So, let's see. 1, 2, kicks out. So, here's the thing. I thought, in theory, I thought that this worked, but in practice, I am not as sure. You will see why in a moment. So he puts him up top. And he's finally going for his finisher, the superplex. And hits it. Yeah, I love the superplex. Very cool move. But either way, he goes for the pin. 1, 2, kicks out. So remember what I said earlier about Matt Gray punching Reeves and then Reeves being able to just take all of it before returning. Here's the thing. Matt Gray just got powerbombed into fucking oblivion, right? And then he gets hit with a superplex. So, the thing here is, how, if that did not work, what will, you know? Yeah, I went a bit too far. I should have had him just pin Gray, and then he kicks out, and then we switch to this, where he calls Reeves to get in the ring and help him out. Because, honestly, while it can be argued that the worry here is, oh god, if this didn't work, what are they gonna do to Matt now? I'm personally not so sure. Let's say, for example, that let's look at it like this. Like I said before, if Gray is able to kick out of a finisher after being put through all of that, what else can he possibly be put through that will finish him off? That is the main issue here. I think that I lessened the mystery of this match by having Matt Gray kick out of that, and that was a big mistake on my part. But anyway, so Jersey grabs a bat, and here comes Ho Lung Woo. Remember how I said that Arthur Reeves had a rivalry with someone that he kept cheating? Yeah, that's this guy. The fact he's wearing a knee pad is because Reeves actually injured his leg. The last time they met, Reeves gave him a concussion and busted him open by superplexing him onto a chair, which was, I think, a very cool spot, if you ask me. If you want to see more of that, check out the last BPW behind-the-scenes stuff. By the way, Woo is getting some payback by beating the crap out of Arthur Reeves' insurance policy. And then he grabs the chair again. No, he grabs the bat and... Okay. For me, I had the camera angle this high up because at the time, I think I did not know... I didn't have 4 PS4 controllers or 4 PSN accounts. So I was only able to control 3 people at a time. If I had the camera any lower, you would see that Matt Gray is not on the ring. So I had it that high to make it look like he was. The unfortunate thing is, having the camera that high, it kind of hides Ho Lung Woo's eyes. So he looks, when this is meant to be a bit of a dramatic stare down, he kind of just looks like a dork. But anyway. See, that's a lot better as far as drama goes. But anywho. Okay. I don't know why, but I always found that the fact that he just takes the time to beat up Jersey Falls one more time, I find it funny. And it's not supposed to be funny, but I guess it just looks funny. Because it's like, oh yeah, one more thing. And then he attacks him. So, stare down. I should have done a different camera angle where they were staring down at each other, because it does look a bit strange when they're just standing there not doing anything, when the camera does not focus in on the fact that they're staring at one another. But I already did a reverse shot thing between them. I guess it would have been a bit weird if I did it again. And they already did do a stare down, so I really shouldn't have here. By the way, they step in and they start fighting. So Wu sends Reeves into the corner. Goes for his finisher, which is the John Woo dropkick right over Gray, which is pretty cool. And yeah, Wu helped Gray out. Basically a face aiding a face sort of thing. Now, unfortunately, there isn't really a taunt that I think is like a cool, like, salute sort of thing, or like a cool, yo, I got your back sort of thing. So I just went with this. And unfortunately, while I thought it looked cool, at the time, because I did not commentate this match, Dave and Smarty did. At the time when Wu did that, they laughed, and I'm like, maybe I did wrong here. But either way, Wu helped him out, and then he just leaves because he's a face, and while he has problems with Reeves, he is a face. So he's just gonna come in, solve the issue, and then leave Matt Gray to it. Because he's not gonna help him cheat. He's just gonna level the playing field, so to speak. So at this point, Reeves finally recovers from being hit with a John Woo dropkick. Gray just watches him. And he realizes how much trouble he's in. This is my favorite part of the match. Because even though Reeves is like a backstabbing scumbag and, you know, like a very competent wrestler, he is still a bit of a cowardly heel. It's why he cheats all the time, because he's desperate for the win. And he realizes that after everything he did to Gray, there's nothing stopping Gray from beating the crap out of him now. So, yeah, this here was a small error on my part. I should have moved Matt faster so that he went at Reeves while he was still begging. Because now he, like, look at the difference in, what's the word? I guess, expression. Like, look, he looks absolutely scared for his life, and then it's like, okay. Well, I guess it's kind of funny, because it's like, okay, this is my life now. But anyway. So, 1. That suplex looks fucking horrifying and stiff, so I thought it worked great for Matt in this situation. And so he's just gonna beat the ever-living piss out of Reeves here. Instead of going for the pin, he's just trying to beat the crap out of him. And so he calls him up. Spins him around, and... Rain? Nope. Low blow. So, that idea was actually inspired by Matt Gray. When I told him that I was making this match, he had one request for me, and that was to try and make Shibata. I guess this is also a throwback to Shibata's last match against Okada, because he debuted one of the most devastating moves in professional wrestling, which is the Bitch Maker. And Matt Gray, for a while, really wanted to have this move in his arsenal, but unfortunately, it's just not possible. As far as I'm aware, with how the game is, anyway. You can do your best to try and make that move. I did see someone attempt it on Twitter, but unfortunately, I don't really think that it's possible to get it the way that Shibata did it. By the way, because Gray wanted the bitchmaker, I thought, maybe I can tease that I managed to get it done. So this was also a partial tease towards my friend Matt Gray, because he's like, oh, I just suplexed the shit out of this guy, and then I'm going to hit him with the bitchmaker and get for the win. Yeah, this is great. And then Reeves is just very, very slyly ducks the clothesline and hits the low blow. Now, for me, these sort of things are my favorite sequences. I guess partially because it's easy to make, but also because it's the little things. Because at this point, Gray is confident, but he's a little bit overconfident. He is beating the crap out of Reeves after everything that they have been through in this match, and he thinks that he has Reeves beat. But he has forgotten up to this point, even before cheating, Reeves has been able to match Gray in basically every aspect. So when Gray dropped the ball, that is when he gets hit with the low blow. So at this point, it's like, oh god, he got hit with the low blow, and then Reeves sends him into the corner. So it's like, it's meant to be, how do I put this? Recently, for example, at AEW Double or Nothing, during the triple threat between Pac, Orange Cassidy, and Kenny Omega, with Orange Cassidy being the very clear favorite to win, Kenny Omega did everything to cheat that he could, but Orange Cassidy was finally able to overcome him, and he goes for the pin, and at the very last second, Kenny counters it into a crucifix. That is how, I think that is how you get, one of the ways how you get real good heat on someone. You have it look like the face is just about to win, and then in the last possible moment, the heel squeaks out a victory. And I was doing that here. At the last possible moment, it looks like Matt has finally overcome Reeves' cheating. He has with the help of Wu, he has overcome Jersey Falls. He has overcome Reeves fighting dirty. He has overcome all of that, and he's finally gonna go for his victory. But unfortunately, Reeves is able to squeak out the win. So he sends him into the corner. He puts him up top. And then he goes for his finisher, the superplex. But he knows that the superplex did not work. There is a move in the game which I think most people, if you have paid attention to Reeves' moveset, you would know Reeves would have, which is the superplex into the Falcon's Arrow. This is, when I make some of my characters, there's meant to be a move that they very rarely use and only use when they are in, when they absolutely need to. The creator of the Burning Hammer, literally one of the most dangerous moves in pro wrestling, that was his philosophy with the Burning Hammer. Like, he had, I think, a Tiger Driver as a move, but he only pulled out the Burning Hammer if he was desperate. And whenever the Burning Hammer was used, he would always get the win. I do something similar with my wrestlers. For example, Alpha Anika, who's retired, her finisher used to be the Attitude Adjustment, well, the Rude Bomb, which looks like the Attitude Adjustment. And when the Rude Bomb did not work, she would always use the Avalanche Attitude Adjustment. So something like that. So here, Arthur knows that Matt Gray would kick out of a superplex. He's seen it before. So he rolls through, and he's about to go for the Falcon's Arrow. And at this point, it's meant to be like, okay, after everything, if Matt Gray gets hit with the Falcon's Arrow, he's done. So at this point, it's over. Arthur Reeves has won. He has won the Kvbw Championship. All he has to do is hit the move and win. No dice. At the very last second, very, very last second, he counters it into the Fade to Gray. And this time, there's no Jersey Falls to break up the pin. Sorry, break up the submission. And so, all we have to do is wait for the inevitable. He taps out. So, this match is pretty important to me, personally, and I already explained why, but to go through again. Well, I guess also because, again, this was the first match I made in 2K19. Up till this point, I made all of my matches in 2K20, and this is what, you know, got me to stop being so stubborn and start using 2K19. And I'm very glad that I did. And I guess another thing that's really important to me is that this was, again, this is the second match that I made for SWO. And I think this was the match, well, this and the other match that I made is what changed SWO/RSW's philosophy when it came to using the 2K games as a form of machinima. Well, no, I should say using it as a form of machinima, because back in the day, I'm not really sure if what we did really counts. But yes, after everything that Matt Gray went through, he was finally able to put Arthur Reeves away. He was able to hang on to the championship that he has fought so hard for. And I guess, so one very small last thing. I completely forgot one thing when I was making this entire match. Matt Gray isn't a face. At this point, he was a tweener. Well, a heel-leaning tweener. And yeah, sure, he had honor and whatnot, but he was still in a faction of bad people. So I was a little bit afraid that this might ruin any plans that that we had for Matt Gray at the time. Thankfully, that was not the case. If anything, this match did the opposite, and I think it did a lot of good for him. In fact, it's one of Matt Gray's favorite matches, which I find very humbling, and I'm glad that he does. And I'm very glad that people enjoyed this match to begin with. Though, unfortunately, when it was streamed, Smarty had some internet issues, which meant that, well, he couldn't really display the full match in the stream without lag messing it up. But aside from that, that was the full match. So, to give a very brief overview again of what I wanted this match to accomplish. I wanted it to continue the rivalry between Arthur Reeves and Ho Lung Woo. I wanted it to continue the rivalry. 2. I wanted it to establish that Arthur Reeves is a very competent wrestler and not only can he stand toe-to-toe with Matt Gray, if he wasn't such a cocky son of a bitch, he would have won. He would have beaten Matt Gray. If not for his weakness, he would have beaten Matt Gray. So that shows that even though he cheated to win, he is a championship contender level wrestler. So that's 2. 3 was to introduce what Jersey Falls, the big guy, was capable of in the ring. So that when he eventually showed up later in BTW, you know, when he wrestles someone, people are like, oh my fucking god, this other dude is fucked. And 4, wait, what was the 4th thing? Yeah, the 4th one. This was something that I wanted to accomplish, which didn't really have much of a storyline thing. I wanted SWO to change the way that it was telling stories. And when I joined it, those changes were beginning to happen, and I wanted to help push things along a little. And because I always have this thing where it's like, if you have a problem with something, complaining isn't going to help, just fix it, or do it yourself. And so I did decide to fix it. When Smarty agreed to let me make a match for SWO, make a full match for SWO, because before it was just like, before it was, you know, AI versus AI mixed in with some spots, rather than pure focused storytelling. And I wanted this to lay the idea in Smarty and Dave's mind that we can use matches to tell pure storytelling without needing to rely on the AI. That we can have both storytelling and a fun match if we do this. And considering the fact that in RSW we now have long-term storytelling, even after this match, we started having long-term storytelling, and matches started having psychology and storylines in them themselves. I think I succeeded. I guess the fifth and last thing, of course, was to make a good match. And while this is not one of my favorite matches, I think that this match was a really good one. How many matches did I make up to this point? I know I made like one BTW episode. No, God, no. If this is, the Gauntlet took place on episode 4, so at this point I made multiple highlight reel matches, and I used everything I learned to make this one. And I think that it turned out pretty well. It did not have the fancy spots that I use nowadays, and there were definitely many mistakes and things that I would change looking back on it, but nonetheless, I am still happy with it. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed listening to me commentate over this, and I hope that if you make matches yourself, that this gave you good ideas for you to use. Oh yes, one last thing, because I feel like I heard some people talking about this before, and I want to get it on video. If you see any of my sequences or anything like that, and you think they are cool, and you want to use them, use them. Use everything that you have seen. However, if someone asks you that you made them yourself, don't. Just say that you got them from someone, that you were either inspired by me or inspired by someone else. If you see something online and you want to use it in your own thing, as long as you like either remix it or, you know, just say that it was not yours, in this situation alone, I'm fine with it. Because the reason why I say in this situation alone is because I do not want people to use my words as, you know, as an excuse to start stealing art and shit like that. That is never cool. That is never cool at all. But you can steal my sequences if you wish to, as long as you say that they do not belong to you. Because some of the sequences that I have used in the past, while most of them belong to me, some of them do not. And well, I did say where I get some ideas from. But either way, I hope that the most important thing that you did learn, if you plan on making matches yourself, is that this is a medium for telling stories. It doesn't have to be. If you want to make a cool match where it's just two people punching the shit out of each other, feel free. That is perfectly valid. But if you are a storyteller like me, and you want to use this medium, well, you're afraid of how you can use this medium to tell stories, don't be. I was afraid about that too. And I can tell you that this is as valid a medium for telling stories as any book or any movie or any comic book or any video game or anything. Wrestling is a story. Well, wrestling matches, even the most intense ones, are stories. And they don't need to be obvious stories, they don't need to be subtle stories, but they are all stories. And yeah. So, I hope you liked watching. I hope you enjoy. I will put on the screen right here the other video that I made that goes back to the things that I did, like behind the scenes with the Kvbw Gauntlet, which is the match which leads directly into this one. And on my right here, you will see a random video, I guess, that you can watch, anything that I've made. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you later. Peace.